Afternoon. I like to talk to people while they're coming in. It's always that much more fun. I normally have music playing when people come in too, but I'm not even going to try to get that working. So let's not fight that battle. It is, yeah. I've seen a lot in different conferences and stuff. When I play music, when people come in, it kind of sets the stage and stuff like that, and the tone for it. So I like to do that. How is everybody doing today? And hopefully you've had a great conference so far. How many people have enjoyed the sessions? Raise your hands. All right, everybody, that's what we want to hear. How many people, is this the first time you've been here? Yeah, first time for me. I have been in India before. The company that I work for, Introvert, has an office in Pune, so I was here last year, but I was not at this conference. We missed this conference by like 3 days, and I blame this gentleman right here in the front, because he lives here and he didn't tell me about it before I made my travel plans. So if there's any problem with that, definitely blame him. And you're going to see I'm going to pick on him a lot because he's been picking on me all this conference about my pictures that you're about to see here. So we're going to talk about that during this session. But absolutely, I want to really thank, and again, we haven't started yet, but I really want to thank the organizers of these events. So I have myself put on over 30 events in my 20 years of working in the database industry, and I know what it takes to put on an event. It's very difficult, okay? No one truly understands it until you've done it and what you've had to do. So when you see your organizers, please thank them because it takes a lot of work. And it's by no means these 3 days or anything, trust me. Okay, I'm currently planning Chicago and New York City next year, and we've been planning those since last year. So it's years and years of work to put these things on. So, okay, we ready to go? Ready to go? Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is speaking and community involvement for the introvert. How many people in here are introverts? Okay, now everybody will say to me, Pat, you are on stage. There is no way you're an introvert. Yes, I am. 100%. I am an introvert, and we're going to talk about some things that we can do today to make sure that you can get up here and talk, and you can still be an introvert, okay? It is possible. Miracles happen. All right, so about me, my name is Pat Wright. I've been doing database work for about the last 20 years. I currently work for a company called Introvert. I also do database consulting, and I do a lot of other things about organizing or putting on events for the community. Now, important, my little slide right here will be up at the end as well during questions. So don't worry about taking too much of a picture of it, but I want to call out this QR code. This QR code goes directly to a mentor link that if you want to have a 30-minute meeting with me, you can schedule it on my calendar, and I'd be happy to talk to you about just about anything. And that's no cost, no anything, just come and chat with me. I'd love to chat with you. Now, please keep in mind, right now, I'm in India for the next week, but after that, I will not be. So please keep the time zone in mind so that we're not scheduling things at 2 in the morning. So, okay, so I want to hear a little bit about you guys. Now, normally when I do this session, I like to do a meet and greet, but given the time constraints and everything else, I didn't do that this time. So I'm just going to ask some questions. So by show of hands, let's answer some of these questions. How many people right now know the person sitting next to you? Okay, just about everybody. It's kind of what I expected. Okay, we're going to talk about how this is good and bad in just a second, okay? Number 2, how many of you met someone new at this event? All right, now that's good, okay? I can say everybody that raised their hands, you did not fail, all right? Good job. Good job. Okay, how many of you have been laid off in the past? Anytime in the past. Okay, so only a few of you. So I have been laid off in the past, and that's why I bring up this session is because it's very important to understand these things for in a future if you're laid off or something else. So why are these things so important? Why is it so important that I talk about people sitting next to you and everything else? Why should you be part of the community? I tell people all the time when they come to an event, the most important session you can have is actually called the hallway track. And that hallway track is what you do outside of this room. Besides the technical sessions you learn, the connections you make, the people you meet, those people will hire you in the future. Yes, you need the technical expertise that's inside these rooms as well, but you need that community connection to really get hired out there in the future. So when you're at a conference, one of the most important things you should do is the hallway track. So why should you be part of the community? Why should you be up here talking about it? I can answer my why, but I can't tell you yours. So I'm going to tell you mine here really quick, is that way back in 2004, this was, decades and decades ago, I'm kind of an old person, Way back in 2004, I sat at a conference just like this, and I sat next to 2 other individuals. When I went to that conference, I told myself I have to come out of my shell and I have to meet other people. I was a DBA in a rather large corporation, and I was all by myself. I had nobody to talk to as another DBA or anything else. So I was figuring things out all by myself, but I'm like, I can't do this by myself. I've got to learn, I've got to do this. So I turned to the people next to me, and I said, what do you like about this session? And that's it. That started the whole conversation. I said, what do you like about this session? Because I realized everybody sitting next to me was in the session for the same reason. They wanted to know about the session. So I asked that simple question. That simple question turned into a relationship that I've had with those 2 gentlemen now for 20 years. I've worked with them in different positions. I've volunteered with them. They were past board of directors members. So was I. We did all sorts of things over 20 years over that one single conversation. So it's very important that you find your why to get out there and to talk and be a part of the community, okay? So what is your why? I can't answer that for you. I can't answer it, but I'm going to talk about some ideas here. Maybe you have a concern about being laid off in the future. Now, why is it so important to have a community right now is that if you get laid off for whatever reason, maybe you're downsizing the company, maybe something else happens, the point is if you have a community already, like this community here, you can reach out to them and say, hey, this has happened. And they'll be immediately like, oh, I want to hire that person because we talked about this at the conference and they were doing this. Also, if you have stood up here and presented, and I will challenge you all that if you have not presented, you need to present. When you present to an industry or anything else, you are seen as an expert. Now, maybe your presentation wasn't very good, okay, but you're still seen as an expert. So definitely get up here and talk, and it'll help you greatly. So what are some of the other reasons? Maybe return to office is coming. A lot of people have returned to office and they don't necessarily want to work from the office. So you're looking for another position. Another great reason to be out there in the community. Better opportunities come up. We get this all the time, is that someone you meet at a conference or something else says, hey, I've got this great position. Do you want to come and work on it? That's something you can do at a conference. And when I say conference and community, I also mean meetups, I mean trainings, I mean anything else that's out there, okay? Maybe you have a growing family. Maybe you want a different position or you want to move somewhere else. These are all reasons that you could be out in the community and doing this. But as I said earlier, all of your technical skills only take you so far. If you really, really want to be out there where you never have to interview or something else, the community is where it's going to give you that capability. So, and anything else that you can think of. Any other whys that people can come up with. I can't think of any right off the top of my head. So, questions. Also, I love to have my sessions interactive. If you have a question, if you have a comment, please either just raise your hand or shout it out. I'll happily take any questions as I'm going through this. Okay. So, what do you have to do to get out in the community? And so, most of my presentation is about getting out in the community, getting how to deal with your introvert, and how to get ready to speak at a conference or at an event. Now, so that's what this will all talk about. All these slides and everything will talk about getting you ready for that idea, okay? Start with your why. We just talked about that. Have passion in everything you do. The first thing that you present on should always, always be what you are most passionate about. If you love logical replication, I think you're insane, but if you love logical replication, you should be talking about it. If you love performance tuning, you should be talking about it. The first presentation I ever did was how to pull data out of a SQL server and put it in Excel and show a graph on it. That's pretty boring. But I loved it. It's something I figured out. I was so passionate about it. It makes all the difference when you're up here and you're passionate about it. Okay? Tell a story. Pause the introvert, and willpower is not the answer. We're going to talk about each one of these in the next slide, so I'm going to go through these quickly. This book right here, I want to see if mine can't show up like Bruce's either. Change Anything. So if you go out to Amazon, you go out to Audible, go out to anything else, there's a book out there called Change Anything. This was actually written by a group in Utah. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. This was written by them. It's a wonderful, wonderful book that gives you step-by-step instructions on how to do something. And I'm going to go through some of these steps right now. So if you have not checked this out, I strongly suggest it. It's not a long read. It's a really, really good one. Okay, so how do you have passion and how do you overcome getting on stage? We call this 20 seconds of courage. Now, what 20 seconds of courage means is that it takes 20 seconds of courage to hit submit on a presentation. Okay, now I know what you're thinking. You're like, okay, I got the call for papers in PGConf India. I want to submit. I need more than 20 seconds, Pat, to put together my presentation. Yes, you do, okay? But your idea for the presentation, your concept and your abstract, that you can come up with and say, get it done, and then it only takes 20 seconds to hit the submit button. That's what you have to overcome. 20 seconds is what it takes to change your life. It took me 20 seconds to speak to the people next to me, and that's how I overcame my fear and got through that. So you have to have 20 seconds of courage, and that's it to change everything. All right? That's the key concept here to make sure that you're doing. Questions on this? Anybody else have a 20-second moment they want to share? No? Quiet crowd today. All right. This is my other favorite one. I get this constantly. Every time I get a new speaker, every time I had a user group or anything else, I get somebody come up to me and says, Pat, I don't have anything to present. I don't know what to present on. There's nothing. I mean, we just saw Bruce do security. I can't present on security. Bruce just presented on security. No, completely incorrect. And Bruce will tell you this too if he was here. It's completely incorrect because you have a perspective that Bruce does not. Maybe Bruce has been working in the industry for 20 years or something, and he may have a completely different perspective. But you have a different perspective that may be new and fresh and something different. You should always feel like you have something to offer to the community, and you do. You just have to find the right voice. And the most important thing that I see whenever I see a new presenter come up is they love to tell you 100 technical details about the session. They'll tell you how logical replication works, how the wall log works, how everything works. They need to tell a story. Why do you tell a story? Because people remember stories. And I'm going to tell you one now so that you'll remember it. So I was speaking to a bunch of college kids in the University of Utah, and I told them one of my worst stories that I can tell. And that worst story is that I once crashed a database server, and I did this, it wasn't once, it was only 5 years ago. I crashed a database server and I actually lost production data. I created a script that was supposed to set up a replica. As we all know, you set up a replica by taking a backup, copying it to the other one, and restoring it, and so forth. I created a script to do that, but I didn't realize I was on a production server, not on a secondary server. So I ended up backing up and restoring the same database and then writing over the top on the primary server, and I killed the server. And then I deleted my backup because that was part of my automated script. So I actually crashed the server and deleted my backup, okay? Now, why would I tell you this? Why are you ever going to hire me, right? I did this. The point is you're going to remember that story. When I told that to a bunch of University of Utah college students, I literally got LinkedIn requests, and they're like, you're the guy that crashed the server. I want to talk to you. I'm like, that's what you remember about my talk? I tell you about my career and everything else. The only thing you remember is I crashed a server? Yeah. The point is, stories are what you remember. I wouldn't be surprised if you all talk about that now and say, he's the guy that crashed the server. Stories are what's important. When you just give a technical talk and you just give facts, people are going to forget. Unless they write down hundreds of it like some of us do, but you got to tell a story. Stories matter, okay? And I'll talk about it in a second, a really good place to go and look up those stories. So, how do we get you up here on stage too? How do you pause the introvert, as I like to say? Okay, I've got another story about this one too. This is a concept that they talk and change anything, and many other places talk about this as well. You need a script in your head. Now, what does it mean to have a script in your head? And I'll tell you this wonderful story. So I just flew in Tuesday night, flew into Bangalore Airport, very nice place, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that. We all fly in really, really late. I walk by, and there is a Krispy Kreme donut shop in Bangalore, and I'm like, when did that happen? So you have to understand something about me. I have a very, very bad addiction with donuts. And I mean a very bad addiction, as you can see, with donuts. So I have to tell myself a script every time I see a donut shop that says, no, I do not want a donut right now because I will not be able to take a bike ride that I have to take in 3 months that is over 80 kilometers and over 900 meters in elevation. If I eat that donut, I will not survive the bike ride. So, cycle ride, let me rephrase that. So my point is I have to tell this script to myself every time I walk by a donut store. And I've already walked by one in Bangalore, one in the mall over there, and then every morning at breakfast, there are donuts available. So a script helps you to think about these topics and ideas and helps you to change your habits because that script is always running in your head. It gives you that method and that capability to change your habits in a good way. But there are some very key things you have to do. Number one, don't lie to yourself. This is your own head. Don't lie to yourself, all right? Be honest to yourself. Number two, be blunt to yourself. I tell myself, if you eat that donut, you're not going to make the ride. Or if you eat that donut, you're going to die. I actually say that to myself sometimes too. I'm going to die from diabetes or anything else, my health. The point is that you have to be blunt because your body will not tell you, you will not be able to say, I'm going to pass by. That donut will win. And here's the key thing about this script is it will win sometimes. I didn't put the picture in here, but I showed this to my good friend Tushar here, and they served ice cream sundaes on my flight. Yeah, I had one. If somebody serves you an ice cream sundae on a flight, you should probably eat it. It's really good. But I have avoided all the ice cream that you guys have here at the thing, so I'm doing better. The point is that you have to be specific, you have to be blunt, and you have to accept failure sometimes. Sometimes the script is not going to work. You're going to fail. But that's okay. It's how you recover that really matters. This is just like a database issue and a database backup and stuff like that. How you recover the database is truly what makes the difference. How you recover from your problem with a donut or with whatever else is what makes the difference. So how does this help you get up here on stage? How does this help you speak and present? If you tell yourself over and over again, if I speak and present, I will become a better person in the community and I will be more well known, I'll get a better job, all of those things, that will help you to push that button and say, I want to present at the next conference. And honestly, I challenge all of you, I'm going to go through the steps, but I challenge all of you to present at some sort of event. Always start with your local office first, honestly. You can do a presentation to any of your teams right now all the time. That's always the easiest place to start. And then go to meetups, users groups, and then go to conferences and so forth and so on. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is how I get through most of my things, is I make a script. I have many different scripts in my head for many different things that I want to change about my habits. This morning I got up, I still got on the bicycle this morning in the hotel. That's a tough one because I don't want to get on the bicycle. But again, if I don't, I'm not going to make that ride in a couple months. So the one I was going to bring up in here is I have on here, tell a story. If you do a YouTube search for David Phillips is a wonderful, wonderful storyteller, and he gives you some ideas and concepts on how to tell a story. So I'm actually working on a presentation just about telling stories, but that's a great place to go and look up. Just look for David Phillips, wonderful explainer of how to do it. And then the last one I have down here that I didn't really talk about is willpower is not the answer. A lot of people will say, nope, I'll just walk by the donut. I have the willpower to stop. Yeah, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. I've failed that so many times, saying, no, I'll just get past it. I've got the willpower, I've got the grit. Yeah, no. Because you'll have one donut, and then the second and the third and the fifth donuts, they get you every time. I mean, and then all of a sudden you're having 5 donuts and you're just in a bad state. So make sure you get a script in your head and try to do that, okay? All right, now we're going to talk about specifically, and I want to make sure I'm good on time and everything. I'm good on time. I want to talk specifically on what you need to do to prep for a session, okay? So this is getting you ready for a session. And again, this can go as far as a local session in your office or a meetup or a full conference, okay? So whenever you submit to a conference, number one, always submit multiple sessions. Now, you might say, well, that's going to make the organizers have so much more work to do. No. They need the alternatives. In case there are 5 sessions on logical replication, you have another alternative to do as well. So you always submit multiple sessions. I usually submit 3. I tend to submit 3. Now, that does not mean that you have to have the full session written when you submit. If the conference is 6 months later, you can have an idea, concept, something set up, and then you have 6 months to build your session, okay? So don't be afraid to say, I've got this great concept, I got these great things, I'm gonna submit it, but then I'm gonna build it over the next few months, okay? That is acceptable, so do those things. Make sure you proofread and spell check it. At this point, if you don't paste it into AI and say, make this look better, you should, okay? Definitely do those sort of things. This Write for the audience you intend to have is one of my favorite suggestions. When you think about the submission in your head in the abstract, tell them what you want to talk about. I said in my abstract, I know that 99% of you are introverts. I'm writing to introverts. I wanted to do that. I wanted to make sure people knew what they were getting into in my session. So be clear who you want in your session. And then make the summary and the short description very clear. A lot of people like to make funny little things, funny little titles and things like that, but be careful on that. If somebody knows what the title is, make it clear on what the title is, okay? My lightning talk later today will make fun of this, but normally you should not be doing this. All right, and now let's say we're actually prepping the presentation to get everything ready, to get that 6 months and everything else. Gather your data and facts. A lot of people get really, really stuck on this. They're like, well, what if somebody calls me out that I'm gonna have the wrong answer? I guarantee you, somebody in the audience is gonna be smarter than you on a new session. I guarantee it. If Bruce is sitting here, you're gonna have somebody smarter than you, okay? So just understand that's okay, but do your very best to get your facts, gather your data, and know what you're talking about, and that'll make very important. I say study and prepare your slides, but these two go hand in hand. Present to an empty room. I cannot stress this enough. Before you get on stage, before you do anything else, I always suggest at least 3 presentations first, where you've done the presentation 3 times. Now, why 3 times? 3 times is a magical thing in our head that somehow helps us to remember these things a lot easier. I've done this session probably 10 times, so I can do it very easily. But you want to do it 3 times. Now, that does mean that you can present to an empty room. Another great story, one morning I was getting a session ready for high school kids. High school kids is a very, very hard group to speak to, and I was on a big stage of 500 high school kids, and I had 7 minutes as a keynote. That's a tough session to get, okay? It's not something I would suggest for the first time. So I was presenting in my office at about 6 o'clock in the morning to an empty conference room. I was standing up like this, literally talking to nobody. And the president of the company walks in and he's like, Pat, what are you doing? I go, oh, I'm just practicing a presentation, getting ready. He's like, oh yeah, go right ahead, because he does the same thing. We practice presentations to get ready. So don't be afraid to talk to an empty room, present this to your pets, to your loved ones. If your partners or whatever fall asleep during it, it's a great way to get them to go to bed early. It's not a problem. My wife tells me all the time, can you just talk to me in technical speak so I'll fall asleep? It happens constantly. The point is that do whatever you can to present it 3 times. And one of those could be to your office mates, to your office workers. That should be your first, and then a meetup. And then you're ready to go when you come up here. And it makes you feel so much more confident. So present to an empty room, present to others, whoever you can. Okay? And then this tell a story link goes directly to the YouTube of David Phillips. So it's just the same thing that I talked about earlier. It's just a link directly to it. All right. If you're going to demo something, demos can be one of the most dangerous things to do on stage, okay? They're difficult, they're dangerous, everything can go wrong. My favorite thing on this, of testing and everything else, is I had a SQL Saturday presenter, good friend of mine, love him to death. He tested his and got it all ready, and the morning of, Windows updates came. Yeah, nothing worked in that afternoon, and he had 3 sessions that afternoon, and not a single one of his demos worked, all because Windows updates in the morning came along and said, nope, you can't have that. So have a backup. If you're going to demo, the best thing I can suggest, there's a couple things. Number 1, you can have a recorded video slides of what you're doing. You can have a little walkthrough right here. You can say, okay, sorry everybody, the demo didn't work. I'm gonna bring up this video and we're gonna watch it and you then talk through it. That's a quick way to get around it, piece of cake. Number 2, you could have just slides that cover the same content without a video or anything else. That's another way. Those are both common things to do. Also on testing, make sure you do not require internet necessarily. I've had several presenters saying, well, I can't VPN into my staging environment. I'm like, no, you can't VPN into your staging environment in a conference to show other people that content. Please don't. The point is sometimes you cannot do things in a community conference setting like this, so make sure you don't have internet. And the last thing is, if your demo goes wrong, when your demo goes wrong, let me rephrase that. When your demo goes wrong, do not focus on your demo going wrong the entire session, okay? Apologize once, say, my demo didn't work, I'm really sorry, let's move on and we'll talk about the other concepts, and then if I can get it working later, I will. Do not spend the time troubleshooting your demo, okay? I've seen way too many presenters lose 7 minutes on their demo. Don't troubleshoot your demo. Now, if your demo is troubleshooting Postgres, then maybe you should, but that's not normally your demo, okay? Questions on demo? All right, moving through this quickly. Okay, I want to be very clear here. Day of prep is not me drinking all of this alcohol, all right? I want that to be clear. But I also want to be clear, this is how I prepare for a party at my house. So if you ever want to come out, let me know. That's our party standard. So when you go to an event, when you go to anything else, confirm with your organizers. As an organizer, I cannot tell you how many times I've walked into a session and no speaker was here. And I'm like, okay, where's the speaker? I'm very concerned. So make sure you check in with your organizers. Those are the people with running around trying to do everything possible. Make sure you check in with them and make sure they know you're there. All right? Go to your location beforehand. So I did all this yesterday. For the training. I was here on Wednesday. I came in on Wednesday. I got my badge. I came in and checked out the room. I knew my space of where I was going to be. Always, always come and validate your space. Make sure where you are. If they have a green room for presenters or things like that, you can usually test your laptops or do any of those things. Always do that beforehand and do it early in the day. If something comes up, let somebody know. Hey, my hard drive and my laptop just crashed. Can someone give me another one? Can I get slides somewhere else? That way you can bring it up. And always hit up your fellow presenters. There's a lot of the times we carry extra stuff. I mean, I've handed out my pointer, adapters, all sorts of things many times to fellow presenters because they've forgotten something or something's come up. So check all those things. Lots of water. I'm a water drinker. I like water. Do not do sugary sodas or sugary anything before you get on stage. Sugar tends to gum up your mouth a little bit. It makes it a little harder to speak, so it's a lot easier. I do also suggest, and Bruce gave me this suggestion quite some time ago, hot tea or hot water or something else before you get on stage. Usually about an hour helps to loosen up your throat as well, too. I had some coffee right before I came on earlier, too, as well. So those sort of things are really, really good as your prep because you're going to speak for about 45 minutes to an hour. So you have to be ready for that. So make sure you do those things. And then, of course, testing demos and then test them again. Again, I use my friend as an example. He tested in the morning, and by the afternoon, his stuff was broke. So it can happen. It can totally happen. Just be very careful. And don't Windows update, Linux update anything on your box if you can avoid it the day of your presentation. Your box should stay as quiet as possible for any of those things. Okay, question on any of those things? All right, we're moving right through. Presentation time. So do not be afraid of, I don't know, okay? It is acceptable to say the words, I don't know, as a presenter. Now, here's the key thing to an I don't know question. Say, I don't know, but let me follow up with that. Can you come up with me afterwards? I'll get your email address or something else, and we'll try to follow up later and figure out if we can find that problem for you. Or we'll bring somebody else in from outside in the community, and maybe they can find that problem for them too. Make sure you follow up on an I don't know. Repeat the question. This is a good one. I've been silently rating all my speakers that I go to every time I go to a conference. I'm an organizer. I've rated speakers for a long time. And I can tell you right now, I've got a lot that say repeat the question, repeat the question, repeat the question over and over again. Because two things happen when you repeat the question. Number one, if you're videotaping it, you get it on the video because they may not have had a microphone. Number two, you understand the question that's being asked to you. You say it back to them. You say, is this what you meant? Let me repeat that back to you and make sure that's what you meant. And then you repeat the question. Always, always repeat the question. I'm going to move through these other ones pretty quickly. You can read them up here, but the key ones I'll put up here is eyes up on your audience. You see what I'm doing right here is I'm actually walking back and forth. This is called blocking. I take 2 points on the stage and I only move between it and that's it. I don't have to worry about falling off the stage or anything else. I know where I am. I have no problems and I can just move back and forth. It's good to be out here and up and present so you can talk to people and you can make eye contact with them. Okay? Don't stay back here behind this like this. Also, if you're doing a demo or something, don't be afraid to do some of the demo and then stand up and talk and then go back to your demo. Okay? Those are all things that you can do. And keep things moving. The last one I'll put is keep things moving. I saw this yesterday. If questions come in, questions are great. But don't be afraid to say, that is an excellent question. I really appreciate it. Can I keep with this session? Let me finish up and then we'll talk more after the session. That's perfectly acceptable because you have to keep the session going. You have to get to the rest of your content. If you just follow to all the questions and that's it, you're never going to get to your content. So make sure you say, I love that question. Please come and see me after and we'll answer that right after this. Okay? Okay. And the last thing I'll talk about, yes, this is a person in cardboard armor. No, I'm not going to give the backstory because I'm running out of time, but if you want to hear about it, I'll tell you all about it out there. Make sure after you've done a session, after you've done anything, blog about it and follow up about it. If you've been up here on stage, you want to post this on LinkedIn, you want to talk about it, you want to say things so that everybody in the community knows that you're presenting and talking on it. If it's got a recording, share out the recording and say, look what I did recently. I presented this. Make sure you get out there and follow up with it. Follow up with the attendees if you have a follow-up with them, if you said something else. And the last one, what this one is about, is put your armor on, okay? I can't tell you how many sessions I've read before that said, your presentation sucked. Feedback, okay? That's it. That was the whole feedback. Now, there's nothing you can do about that. That's going to happen. Things are going to come up. People are going to say, I didn't like your session. It's okay. You have to be ready to take those feedbacks and say, I have to do better, or I need to try to do something. Now, hopefully, you give constructive criticism. And you should do this as attendees always. You should tell the presenter what you did not like. Hey, Pat, I really didn't like that you moved all over the stage constantly. It was annoying. I couldn't keep track of you. It was a terrible thing. That's constructive feedback. Feedback of, I didn't like your session, doesn't help anyone, okay? So when you give feedback, give good feedback. But when you get feedback, you have to take that and move forward. You have to take this feedback and say, this is how I get better. I can tell you right now, I did not start as a good presenter. As a matter of fact, I have a lot of bad feedback in the first 3 or 4 years of presenting. I was not a good presenter. That feedback got me to the point where now I can speak and present and do a good job because of that feedback. So it's very, very important you get that. And I strongly suggest if you do a small one with your team, if you do a small meetup or anything, ask for feedback. Asking for feedback right there gives them the ability to tell the feedback right there on that session. And you get that information a lot better. So ask for feedback whenever you can. Okay, summarize. Here are the steps. Actually, I've got one more. Yeah, I want to do this one more. So the key takeaways of my thing, if you remember nothing else about what I talked about today, hopefully you remember a few stories, and hopefully it's not donut related. Pause the introvert. It doesn't take much. You can do it. And know that you can give yourself a break. So I forgot one other story. I have one really, really good friend that dresses up as a princess to go to sequel training events. I'm not kidding. Her name is Royal Sequel. Please look her up. She's a wonderful lady. She dresses as a princess. She is an introvert. She can do that for 2 or 3 conference days, and then she doesn't talk to anybody on Sunday. She recharges. She uses that time. She spends her time, and then she recharges on Sunday. You can do this. Anybody can do this. You just have to find a way that works for you. Meet 3 people at the event. If you have not met 3 people at the event today, this event, you failed, okay? I'll give you all a failing grade. Meet 3 people at the event. This is what I tell my team members right now. They know this. They have to meet 3 people at the event because that's how you build community. Meet 3 people at every event. Make a meetup, schedule a lunch, something. Get out there and speak and present because it's going to make all of the difference. And then focus on a goal of speaking or presenting. Maybe your goal right now is I want to present at the next PGConf India. I hope that is your goal, and you need to do all these steps to get there before then. So, okay. And the last thing I'm going to mention is that I leave this up for my Q&A, and here's why. I've seen this a lot at this event. I love to tell you when you're presenting or anything else, let everybody know that the presentation is done, and they may leave. If they would like to stay for Q&A, they are welcome to, but if they would like to leave, please by all means go ahead and leave. So I'm going to leave this up. I'm going to say this right now. Thank you all very much. You've been a great audience. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions for me, please let me know, but otherwise, thank you for your time. And let's see, how'd I do on time? Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pat.
You're welcome. Yes. Yes, a suggestion. Thank you. Yes.
If you go back to your presentation steps.
Yeah, these?
No, I think the presentation time.
Yeah.
Presentation.
This one.
Invest in a clicker.
Ah, yes, invest in a clicker. Yes, one of these little things. Wonderful, wonderful thing. Definitely have one of these. Some conferences will give you these sometimes too, so if you've got a big location. What? Yeah, these are wonderful, yes. These also can do time. This vibrated so I knew what time it was. That's how I kept track of my time. So, Excellent suggestion. Oh, I forgot to mention, well, everybody's still sitting here too. You're supposed to leave. My picture, how many people think that looks like me? Come on, show of hands. Okay, you fail. I think enough of that, what?
I had difficulty doing that. I was looking you up on LinkedIn so that I can do a live post, and I was like, which one is Pat?
Okay. I accept that my employee is right. I need a new picture. That's what he was complaining about. He says it doesn't look like me. That was taken 6 years ago. It's not that far off, but I guess I aged too fast. I will have a new picture, I promise. So maybe that's another suggestion. Make sure you have a good picture. Yes, sir. Am I still on Twitter? No, I am not. Is that up there? No, I'm actually not. But Blue Sky has the same name. So I just haven't updated the slide. Yeah. I am not still on Twitter, but Blue Sky has that same name. And honestly, if you go here to my blog, the blog link has pretty much all of my contact info on it. So, okay. Thank you, everybody.